Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I like bicycles. They're less stressful than cars, and I enjoy riding around town. This story is about a strange fight over a bike I restored. 3 years ago, I was browsing at a local junk shop. This particular shop was famous for having treasures hidden among trash. I'd found vintage tools and rare bike components there before. In the corner, I saw a yellow bicycle with a steel frame. The paint was peeling and it was covered in dust, but the frame lines were unmistakable. I walked straight to it. I checked the frame closely. The serial number was intact but partially obscured by rust. The shop owner noticed and laughed. He told me he found it in an estate sale last month. He knew he'd found a buyer. The bike wasn't in good shape. The wheels were bent, the frame was worn, and the derailleur was broken. The brake cables were frayed and the seat was cracked beyond repair. I bought it anyway, paid cash, and got a bill of sale and receipt. The owner charged me $75, which was fair for its condition. At home, I started fixing it up. I dismantled it completely, laying out each part on an old bed sheet. After cleaning it, I found spots where decals had been removed. The distinctive lugwork and drop-out design gave it away. I learned it was a Generation 1 mountain bike from a racing bicycle company. They only produced 300 of them before discontinuing the line. It failed when it was new, but is rare now. I wanted to ride it, not keep it as a museum piece, but I still wanted to restore it right. I researched the original specifications and color scheme online. I looked for original parts when possible. The wheels were easy to find, but the derailleur was hard. I spent $230 on a period-correct component from an overseas collector. I found a company that made something similar. A friend helped with paint and gloss. He specialized in automotive restoration and knew how to match the original yellow tone. I added a half-rusted twin basket rack. I spent hours adjusting the gears to shift smoothly. I put on reproduction decals that looked good from far away. The brake levers were modern replacements but matched the style. It looked like a classic bike, maybe worth a few $100s, but any collector would know it wasn't valuable up close. The restoration took about 4 months. I documented every step with photos. The final result wasn't perfect but had character and rode beautifully. Before this, I'd had a problem with a homeless person who tried to claim a bike on a bus rack. He insisted the blue mountain bike was his despite it having my university sticker. Since then, I always carry my bill of sale and keep emails for parts I buy. I even carry photos of the restoration process on my phone. 6 months after finishing the bike, I stopped at 7-Eleven for snacks. It was around 8:15 in the evening and the parking lot was nearly empty. I put my stuff in my bags and was about to leave when 2 guys walked toward me. They looked at my bike with unusual interest. One shoved me and told me to get off his bike. He was taller than me by several inches and had a threatening posture. I asked what he meant. He said I was riding his tricked-out classic bike that I stole. He pointed to specific features like the yellow frame and basket rack. He and his buddy spotted it and were taking it back. I asked when it was stolen. The guy seemed surprised by my question. He said it didn't matter. His friend said he saw it 2 or 3 weeks ago. He added details about where he supposedly parked it. This made no sense since I'd had the bike for 6 months. I even had pictures of me riding it dating back months. The guy kept threatening me and pushed me again. His friend started circling around to block my escape route. The store clerk must have seen this because a police officer came over. The officer was already in the store on his coffee break. The officer asked what was happening. He positioned himself between me and the aggressive pair. The guy told him I stole his expensive bike and he was claiming it. He said it was worth $500 with all the custom work. I asked when I supposedly stole it. He mumbled something neither of us could hear. His story started changing with each question. I told the officer how I bought the bike at a junk shop and spent months fixing it. I explained the rarity of the frame and showed him scratches I documented. The officer had his partner check our IDs and look for stolen bike reports. The second officer took notes on everything we said. The officer asked the guy when he lost the bike. Both he and his friend said a couple weeks ago they claimed it was stolen from outside an apartment building across town. I tried something else. I said I'd give the bike back exactly how I found it. I explained how the bike was just a rusty frame when I got it. I'd take off all my new parts, decals, and add-ons, but he'd have to take the junk parts too. This would mean returning a barely functional bike worth maybe $20. The guy smirked. He refused and said I should leave the new parts on his payment. He claimed I owed him compensation for using his bike all this time. I asked the officer, what if I could prove I bought the bike legally and all the parts for it? I mentioned the detailed restoration photos on my phone. The officer told me to prove it. I took out my wallet slowly. The receipt was laminated to protect it from wear. I showed my bill of sale from the shop. The date clearly showed I purchased it 6 months before this confrontation. I showed him eBay emails and purchase history for all the parts. I pulled up dated photos showing the bike's transformation. I smiled. The officer rolled his eyes. He'd clearly seen similar scams before. The guy's friend tried to leave, but the second officer stopped him. The partner ran both their names through the system. The partner said there was no stolen bike report. He also discovered something on his computer that made him raise his eyebrows. The officer asked the guy once more when the bike was stolen. He seemed nervous now and kept looking at his friend. He said again it was a few weeks ago. His story changed slightly with each retelling. The officer told me to pack up while he talked to the guy. The clerk went inside probably to give a statement or video. He returned with security footage showing me arriving on the bike. The partner whispered something to the officer. They arrested the guy for filing a false police report. The handcuffs clicked loudly in the quiet parking lot. While they handcuffed him, I heard them mention violation of probation. They also found tools in his pocket commonly used for bike theft. The guy started yelling that he was going to pay me for the bike and I was backing out of our deal. He claimed we had arranged a sale earlier that day. He was making up a story about us having an agreement. The second officer told me this wasn't their first bicycle scam. I just packed up and rode home to tell my family. The officer gave me his card in case the guy's friends ever bothered me. I still ride that yellow bike today. Let me tell you how my family got rid of someone who overstayed his welcome every year. I'm from a big family. My parents host Thanksgiving because we have the biggest house. There's my uncle, not by blood, but by marriage to my mom's sister. He's entitled and his go-to line is, "But we're family." He was a truck driver until he hurt his back. Now he lives off his pension, Social Security, and my aunt's Social Security. Before what happened, my family had large Thanksgiving celebrations. My uncle and his wife would drive their tiny camper RV to our house. They parked in the driveway, but he spent all his time in our house. My uncle had bad habits nobody liked. First, he drank too much. Nobody in my family minds drinking, but he'd get drunk, dance without music, and make comments that bothered everyone. When called out, he'd say it was just between family. My dad once told him to watch what he was saying after an inappropriate comment about my dad's brother's wife. My uncle brushed it off, saying we shouldn't be so sensitive because we were family. Second, after drinking, he'd call his local buddies and hit the bars. Weeks later, these friends would show up at our door looking for money he owed them. I once told him another friend was at the door asking for bar tab money. He told me to pay it off because we were family. Third, his NASCAR obsession. He watched, ate, breathed NASCAR. His house walls, clothes, dishes, everything had NASCAR on it. He recorded any event he missed. While we wanted to watch Thanksgiving football, he'd try to take over the TV for NASCAR replays. Mom once told him we looked forward to watching the game all day. He said he was watching a classic 2007 Daytona 500 replay and needed 5 more minutes, which turned into hours. His sleeping habits were bad too. He took Dad's chair and slept with NASCAR blasting his white noise. Once he maxed out the speakers. The house shook with race car sounds all night. Fourth, he stayed too long. 2 or 3 weeks every time. He'd say he couldn't travel back or made local plans or wanted time with my aunt, but he left her while he partied. My aunt is really nice. After years of this, we wanted him gone. But how? Mom had an idea in 2011 or 2012. She used salsa. She put out 3 bowls, 2 regular salsa for us, 1 ghost pepper salsa for Uncle. His bowl looked like regular salsa, but we knew which was the special Uncle bowl. Deep red with tomato chunks, but full of extreme heat. We gathered in the living room before dinner with chips and salsa. Uncle had his own bowl. He sat in Dad's chair with NASCAR qualifying rounds on TV. He told Mom the salsa looked great and she made good appetizers. Mom thanked him and said it was special for today. We ate our regular salsa while making sure Uncle had his bowl. He didn't feel anything for the first 2 bites, so we encouraged him to eat more. Half drunk, he didn't notice he was the only one eating from that bowl. Dad asked if the salsa was good. Uncle said it was pretty good, different than usual. I told him to have more since Mom made it, just for today. He kept eating, like those Looney Tunes cartoons with fire shooting from mouths. That was my uncle after 30 seconds. His face turned red, sweat on his forehead, eyes wide. He yelled for water, but ghost peppers aren't cooled by water. You need milk. He shouted for milk. Mom told him we were out used in the mashed potatoes. We actually had milk in the garage fridge. We didn't tell him. He burned all evening. Couldn't taste turkey or pie, just fire. He drank so much water he was up every hour using the bathroom. Between his burning mouth and no sleep, he was miserable. Next morning he said they needed to leave early. Some emergency at home. Every Thanksgiving since, when he sees salsa at our house, he tells his wife they need to go home. Now our Thanksgivings are peaceful. We watch football without NASCAR interruptions. Dad sleeps in his chair. Nobody asks us for money. I feel bad sometimes, but then I remember how he used our hospitality with his family excuse. Family also knows how to get rid of you when you stay too long. Ghost peppers send him away every time. When I got pregnant while in the Navy, they sent me to limited duty in an office with other pregnant or injured sailors. Our supervisors seemed to think we all got pregnant just to avoid sea duty. I was the most senior pregnant woman there and knew my rights. We had to do PT, physical training, 3 times weekly with modifications. Pregnant sailors couldn't do sit-ups, push-ups, jumping jacks, couldn't stand for more than 15 minutes, and could run if we wanted to. We could do our own workouts like stretching and yoga ball exercises for 30 to 45 minutes. We wanted to join the gym's pregnancy yoga class, but they said no because it started at 10 a.m. in the middle of work hours. Our supervisors mostly left us alone, but sometimes they made even women 7 to 8 months pregnant run in the rain. I stopped these ideas quickly with documentation. My supervisors didn't like me much. In my 3rd trimester, my anemia got bad. I felt lightheaded and had tunnel vision often. I still came to work on time and did my yoga ball exercises during PT. One morning, the tunnel vision hit hard and I slipped off my ball. While sitting with my head between my legs, someone grabbed my shoulder. My supervisor, who I'll call Jerk, yelled at me to get off the floor and keep doing PT. He said pregnancy wasn't an excuse to sit down. When my vision cleared, I stood up to face him. I told him I couldn't keep doing PT and needed to sit out. I showed him my medical paper that said I could rest when needed. Jerk ignored my paper and told me sitting wasn't allowed during PT. He said if I needed to sit, I should go to medical. I asked another woman to drive me to medical, but Jerk interrupted. He said I needed to get myself there. I told him I was about to pass out and couldn't drive. I warned him if he wouldn't let someone take me, I'd call an ambulance. Since this would cause an investigation and paperwork for him, he agreed but said I needed to find my own way back. At medical, I told the desk about my dizzy spells and how my supervisor made me do PT despite my medical paper. A nurse took blood and they brought me to the department head, Captain O.B., who heard what I said. I explained everything, including how they pushed pregnant women too hard. Captain O.B. asked where we did PT, and when I told him, he looked concerned. He told me that gym was dangerous for pregnant women because the basketball courts were too close to our yoga area. He also said that according to Navy rules, any command making pregnant women do organized PT must submit a plan through the chain of command for his approval first. He printed the rules, highlighted important parts, stamped and signed it, and added his business card. He told me to give these to my supervisor and tell him to call with questions or to show their PT plan. Captain OB gave me his private number to call if I had more problems. He wrote me a new medical paper saying I could rest whenever needed and only do work I felt safe doing. This mattered because they made me move heavy boxes and test live electrical equipment. My blood test showed very low iron. Captain OB increased my iron dose and gave me a week off to see if that helped. The medical driver took me back to work. When I returned, they called me to the chief's office. He scolded me for being late and missing PT. Jerk stood in the corner looking smug. He hadn't told the chief he sent me to medical. I put my paperwork on the chief's desk and told him Captain OB wanted to see our PT plan for pregnant women. Jerk read the highlighted parts and his face changed. Jerk asked if I would really go that far. I said I just followed his instructions to go to medical if I needed to sit, and this is what medical gave me. I pointed out the Navy rules we should follow. I mentioned my new medical paper from Captain OB and my week off. I said I'd see them next Wednesday. After that, pregnant women in our office could do PT anytime during the day if we did it 3 times weekly. We could all go to the 10 a.m. pregnancy yoga classes. Work still got done fine no matter when we exercised. And Jerk had to do all the heavy lifting and electrical work until someone without restrictions arrived, because all the women now had medical papers from Captain OB saying we couldn't do those things, with Navy rules attached. I bought my first home last year, a 3-bedroom house with a big backyard in a quiet neighborhood. It was perfect for me and my 2 dogs. The only problem was there wasn't a fence around the yard. I wanted a fence so my German Shepherd mix and Border Collie could run around safely. Before building one, I talked to my neighbors to see if they wanted to split the cost. I went to my neighbor on the left first, an older man who had owned his house for decades. I said hi and asked if he wanted to pay for part of the fence since it would be on our shared property line. He told me no thanks. He'd been there 30 years without a fence and didn't need one now. Next, I tried the neighbor on the right, a middle-aged woman I'd only seen a few times. I told her I was putting up a fence for my dogs and asked if she wanted to contribute to the cost. She said no because she didn't have pets and didn't need a fence. That was fine. I hired a surveyor to mark my property lines exactly. Then I got a professional fence company to install a cedar fence a few inches inside my property line. I picked cedar because it looks good and lasts a long time, even though it cost more. The fence was almost done on the right side when my neighbor, the one who didn't want to pay for it, walked over looking upset. She said there was a problem with the fence. I asked what kind of problem. She said they were building it wrong. I looked at the fence and it looked fine to me, so I asked what was wrong with it. She said they built it with the ugly side facing her way. I was confused until I realized she meant the horizontal rails that hold the fence together were visible from her side, while my side showed only the flat pickets. I asked if she meant the rails were facing her property, and she said yes. Then she said they couldn't build it like that because it was against the law. I was surprised because I hadn't heard about any laws about which way fence rails should face. I told her I would check with the city. She backed down a bit and said she didn't know if it was an actual law. That's when I knew she was making it up. But she kept saying the fence needed to be built with the ugly side facing my property. I asked if she wanted me to pay to tear down the fence and rebuild it the other way. She said yes, claiming it wasn't allowed the way it was. I offered a compromise. I said I couldn't rebuild it, but I could have the fence company make it double-sided if she wanted to pay for it. She looked shocked at the idea of her paying for anything. She said she couldn't do that. It seemed like she wanted the nice side of the fence without paying for it. I didn't want to start a fight as a new neighbor, so I told her I'd check the city rules and do whatever they said. She nodded and walked back to her house. The next day I called the city building department. They told me there was no law about which way fence rails must face. The only rules were about height and how far from the property line the fence could be. My fence followed those rules perfectly. I thought about telling her what I learned but decided to wait until she brought it up again. She never did. That should have been the end, but it was just the beginning of our problems. Over the next few months, she complained about my dogs barking even though they rarely did. She said my lawnmower was too loud even though it was electric. She even complained about the color I painted my shed, which was just beige. Everything came to a head when I had a small barbecue with friends from work. We were eating burgers and talking on my patio, not even close to her property. She came over and told my guests to move their cars because they were blocking her view of the street. I told her their cars were parked legally on a public street and weren't blocking her driveway. She said she liked to see who was coming and going for security reasons. I told her they had every right to park there and the barbecue would be over in a couple hours. Then she said this was exactly the kind of behavior she expected when they let people like me move into the neighborhood. I was shocked by what she said. Before I could respond, one of my co-workers stepped in. My co-worker asked what she meant by that comment. My neighbor realized other people were listening and that her words sounded bad. She tried to explain she just meant young people with dogs who have parties. My co-worker told her that her behavior could be considered harassment and mentioned working for a law firm that handled neighbor disputes. This wasn't true. My co-worker was an accountant like me, but it worked right away. My neighbor went pale and went back to her house without saying anything else. After that day, things changed. She stopped complaining and even started waving when she saw me. Another neighbor later told me she had tried to control everyone on the block for years, but always backed down when someone stood up to her. I still have my fence with the rails facing her yard. My dogs love running in the backyard, and I like having clear boundaries for my pets and my neighbor. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.